She's watching it. She goes, "Can you go to the football game?" Go, "Yeah." Been all day. Raining. I'm kind of, I can't go off walks around the yard. Oh, no.
That's making up room in my garage now. They can move their go to the garage.
I found the guy says.
Yeah.
But that, you have to go over the house.
Yes. Completely over the fence. Didn't get rid of all. You're so lucky. No, just hop right over the fence. And was down there.
And he's good about hours to go on over.
Yeah.
She's already.
In the corner rack against the door.
Yeah, that big wooden fence.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, we
Itches.
flipped right over.
Right over.
And the daughter says like.
Across the
drive.
Across the aisle.
Yeah, landed in her backyard.
But you saw it.
Well.
So we took it back.
It didn't even break. You drug it back and put it back on its legs. Didn't even dent it. I was really surprised. Oh, yeah, that was the same gust of wind.
I think that's happened 3 times.
Very good.
I can't believe
Storm.
Can't believe it. Rips.
Tears it right out.
Oh, they don't have any.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, 2 little tiny slits.
Yeah, I saw
When
what
you got more of those, and it's just.
Or make
It did take out a tree and my friend. Was pretty hard.
Broke on my apple.
Yeah. Very apple.
At 6 o'clock, we'll call a meeting to order. I will dispense with the pledge of allegiance unless there's an objection. Okay. Before we approve the agenda, can we move the golf course business to the ahead of old business, please?
So item 4B
Correct.
will lead in from 3. And that's just due to timing of when.
Correct. And with that,
Otherwise, the agenda would be.
otherwise, with that little revision, can I get approval of the agenda? Of your motions, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Let's talk golf course.
I could dispense and move this to Kevin opening if you guys don't mind.
Absolutely.
There should be an item in your packet in regarding to a rough mower. There's a JPEG from a Facebook. And then Kevin brought this in tonight, so I made a couple copies for everybody to review. And I turn it over to you.
Yeah, that's fine. So, pardon me? So we've been having a discussion about having to do something about the rough mower out there. We had conversations at the golf board meeting last week and prior. Anyway, Mike had done a bunch of looking and found some mowers, and I had been and looked at them, but the ones that he had found the ones that he had found in Hawley, Minnesota have been sold. There's lots of other ones out there, but not as many as you'd like to think. I did a bunch of looking and printed out a bunch of stuff of a bunch of them that are out there yet, but they're expensive. And Mike just brought to my attention again, which I'd forgotten about, another one that's a private one that I'd like to look into just a little bit. And so I guess what I would like to do is to suggest that no offense, but if we move at the normal pace of government, they're all gonna be sold by the time we get. Okay, so I'm just gonna suggest as an idea that we might talk about what kind of a budget are we gonna look at? And is there a specific mower that anybody has a problem with, doesn't want, or does want, that we should be looking at? The Mike had brought our attention to the John Deere 1600 mower. I visited with him a little bit about the pros and cons of certain ones in that area, because some of them aren't as good as others and what have you. But the big thing is that we were looking at that one in Holly that was 14,000. We talked about trying to get the price down a little bit. They kind of chuckled at me when I suggested that, because they said, sorry, they're all sold already and they're out of luck. And I spoke with all of the dealers that have all of the units that are on these sheets, and they all told me the same thing, that this is internet pricing. We don't budge off of internet pricing, period. That's where they're going. Several of these are quite a ways away. I got a freight quote on one of them in Chesterfield, Michigan, that it's a $2,300 freight quote on top of a $22,500 mower. So I think that we need to continue shopping a little. That's more than I think we should be spending personally, but then that's not my call. The one Mike just sent me again and refreshed my memory on, I really want to explore that one a little bit, because that's the right machine and the price looks awfully good. But I don't know any of the details on it yet, because I haven't looked into it at all.
And that's still the John Deere 1600, just
Yeah.
like this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. No, not just like that.
Oh, okay.
This is a John Deere 1600 turbo,
Got
which
it.
is important.
Because it's newer.
Well, it's not only newer, it's got a bunch of things that are considerable improvements over the original one. It's kind of important to look at the turbo one.
And
That's this one, correct?
That would be a turbo one, correct? Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
And as a backstory for some of the other council members that haven't been here all summer, the existing mower that the golf course was using as a rough mower is an old city mower. It's only a 60-inch deck, and they're mowing all roughs with this, and it takes over 40 hours a week to mow roughs. So the line of thinking is that we're looking for something wider that can handle more grass with less time and be more efficient without spending 180 grand.
What they're using now, I mean, I'm amazed that thing's even still going.
It is, it's been used and then reused and fixed and then refixed, but it's not fixable now.
Well, the one's blown up. The other one that they're using is just, I mean, they both have seen their
Right, their hours. of
their
use.
time.
That should have been boring quite a while ago.
Is there a preference? Mike, Kevin, you guys, Jim? You're the one running it out there. What's
Preference as to,
brand, make?
no. You know, Toro, Jacobson, John Deere.
I mean, I don't want to see what happened.
8 years ago,
I don't want to see a repeat,
10 years
you
ago.
know, that I've only heard about. Buying a mower sight unseen and end up having to put thousands of dollars into it right away, you know.
So with the John Deere, I don't have any preference either. It's Jim's golf course. He knows what he wants. But with the John Deere, we're gonna be looking at a new mower for Public Works this coming year, and doing some research on all the different brands and everything. I talked with one of the reps from John Deere, who's over through here multiple times a week. One thing I liked with them is that if we were to go with John Deere, they would set us up down at the shop with a huge cabinet. And I'm sure Kevin knows about this, with blades, parts, that go out often. Yep, all that stuff right in the shop for us. They'll be by every week to check and see what we've used, what we need. We've got parts guys coming through constantly. So that's a big plus when I'm looking at mowers and stuff for me, especially with, we're running the Kubotas now and going through Acme, and They very rarely have anything on hand down there when I break something, and it can be weeks before I get a part, fix stuff.
You know, is that even if you buy a used mower?
Well, it would,
No, you tell them what you want.
I would talk to Mark, but being that, you know, we're most likely for my department going towards that John Deere. If he knows that we have this 1600 out there, he's gonna keep that stuff stocked for us too.
The thing with that cabinet thing, that's a separate deal
Right,
through their parts department.
right, but just
They
the
don't-
fact that,
They don't care what you have.
yeah, they'll put it all in there, because I mean, we're gonna pay for it, but at least we have it all on hand that way.
Is that McCoy?
No, that's through, now I can't think of the name. They own the one over in Monoman and,
Or
there you go, True North.
they all-
Changed
they
a
all
couple
do it.
of years back.
Yeah, they all do it. So,
But yeah, they've got their parts guy, their service guy, their rep coming through town all the time. So just something to think about with that. Again, no preference either way for me.
the other thing that you have with John Deere is that, you know, I mean, there's not a lot of dealers of any kind around anymore, but, you know, we've got quite a few of them within an hour of here that, somebody could run and get a part if somebody was down, and, or the other thing, overnight shipment.
Yep.
But the thing is, when you have a half a dozen choices within an hour, somebody's probably gonna have a part.
Mhm.
Wasn't there one in Grand Rapids too?
Yep.
That's McCoy,
Okay, I didn't-
right?
No,
I didn't know.
there is a McCoy in Grand Rapids, there's also a lawn and garden. It used to be Waukegan Lawn and Sport, now it's changed to either True
Okay.
North.
What was the name of that? The True North or?
True North is Monoman and Grand Forks and Baudette. And
Yep. They're running all the way over to Duluth.
So Kevin, on average, what do you think is a decent price for a machine of this caliber? If we're gonna find something that's almost 10 years
To
old.
me, the right hours, the right year, the right equipment is 20.
Okay.
You get 3,000 hours on a $20,000 mower. I mean, that's when you start running into your issues, is when you got that many hours in.
You can, yeah.
Because I actually have this exact same mower and it has 800 hours on it. And I'm gonna replace some spindles and obviously make simple maintenance,
Did you buy it?
brand new. Or the Bemidji school did. But they are nice mowers and turbos.
What does Bemidji School do with their old ones?
We use them until they're unusable.
Okay. Figured I'd ask. There are, I mean, you know, the county
Because
sells their
usually as soon
stuff.
as they get so old that,
Okay.
like this price on this for 2,200 or $22,000 for a 2000 with almost 2,400 hours on it.
They're over 80,000.
Oh, maybe. But I know we didn't pay that much for ours.
No, but the school district gets a cut. Municipalities can get a cut, you know, because they're.
So I just don't want to
Yeah.
buy anything that's going to take a crap within 500, 400 hours.
Right. No, I get that. I'm same page. That-
Do we do any of our maintenance, or do we, you send it off once there's even a spindle or
In the
oil
past.
changes, hydraulic
In the
fluid
past,
changes?
we have.
That was something we were gonna discuss, who to do in the maintenance stuff too.
Because, yeah, even prices run up for simple spindle changes and stuff like that. You could be spending another $2,000-3,000 a year, depending on how hard you run it or what you run over too.
The real problem is, I mean, we'd all like to see a brand new one out there, but
That's, yeah,
with where the golf course is at and everything we're trying to do. I mean, even with the government price, we're looking at probably $65,000 for that. We can find one in that 15 to 20 range. Even if we gotta put,
a little bit here.
you know, a little into it and stuff to get us by until we can get that golf course turned around and get on the proper cycle out there, you know, then we can start, you know, just like we have been doing with my departments.
It gives us 2 to 3 years
Yep.
versus 5 to 8, then it's still a better way of spending the money.
Kevin says 20. I was thinking 15.
I just don't know if it's realistic.
But
Especially now that the price
until
is-
you go out there and really research
Research more.
more, because the ones you found are gone. I mean, you're gonna have to do some more research.
Well, but everything that's on these sheets is still there. Except for the one that Christina handed out there that had the, all of the ones that I just brought in tonight are still available.
Right, I only printed off the one that he
Yeah. Yeah,
thought
there-
was the best price for.
yeah.
Oh,
There's-
for
so
its
these
age.
are all different mowers?
No,
No,
that's
no,
all
no.
one more on that sheet, yeah, but there's a couple of them that are similar to that. And they're available, they're a long ways away, $2,300 straight to get them here.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other problem. You know, so if we can find them local, it's nice, but unfortunately, these aren't all over. You know, there's not a lot of them used. And I, you know, like you're saying on the hours and things, you know, we want to try to focus on getting something that's low hours as possible, so it's in as good shape as possible. But also, the thing that I like about dealing with dealers is that they go right through the work order, and I ask them every item on their work order that they did to recondition that machine to get it ready, and I can get a copy of the work order. You know, so we know what's been done. The private party thing, you know, he's cheap enough where we can do some work,
Yep.
you know, so that's not a bad way to go either.
And how many hours would you be looking for on a machine for $20,000? What would you say would be good hours? 'Cause I have no idea.
Yeah, unfortunately, I
ballpark.
don't think you're gonna get one with less than 1,000 hours on it typically for 20,000. Yeah, you can get lucky. You can get lucky sometimes.
Well, and then it's such a, it all has to sit right. I mean, you can have a machine with 3,500 hours that maybe mowed an airport or something where it was super flat, nice mowing, but it was big. And it just mowed. So hours aren't necessarily always the main factor, as you know, you can walk up and look at a machine and tell if it's been cared for or not.
Well, and you-
Don't get one of these golf courses
Yeah.
that has skills.
yeah.
You know?
Well, and like you look in some of these pictures and then you talk to some of these guys, you find out the history of them and what have they done. Like the one guy said that, you know, they put in a new hydraulic pump because they felt like hydraulics were a little weak. The one guy said we put in a couple of mower spindles because they were getting rough, you know, different things like that. So, yeah, the hours are important, but there's also one in my packet here that's got 690 hours on it. And I wouldn't give you 2 cents for that piece of junk. You look at the pictures, talk to the people.
So you just got the one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've got it in my packet.
Yeah.
But I would, you know, 690 hours and I would call it home.
wasn't worth me printing the paper.
No, there you go. Not worth wasting the paper.
I guess yeah.
Should be able to see more than one.
What I'd like to entertain is if the council's okay with continuing looking for this, is if Kevin and the board or with partnership with Jim and Mike come across something that's within that dollar range and there's somebody that would take a deposit, which I have authorization to do in order to hold it until the council meeting on the 11th, then we could move some forward. I mean, if we just look at it right now and say, yeah, we want this and we got to wait 2 more weeks, we're gonna lose it again.
So is this something that you
Unless
need like
you
right
call
now, or is this something we can look through the winter, because prices might drop a little bit in winter?
That's also a very good point.
Yeah, it's an excellent point and it's an excellent question. Because I don't know if Jim's gonna be able to mow or not tomorrow, but, and it may not be based on the weather either. It may be based on the rod going through the block on the other mower, you know, and then I don't know what we do, because, I mean, those mowers, or the mower he's running out there, I would be 100% in favor of him finishing the year out with that mower if it'll. And I personally would love to take the chance on it.
But how did that other mower, I mean, I haven't been here that long, but how did that other mower get in such rough shape where it's just
5,000 hours of beating over the boulevards.
so 5,000 hours, and we're gonna look at something with 2,500?
No, we're talking about a lot different machines here. That's
Yeah, I
all.
guess I haven't seen the equipment out there.
Yeah, it's a lot of different.
Just a standard 7770
Commercial
turn.
zero.
I mean,
Well, you're,
Yeah.
It's a 1990.
yeah.
Seven, seven,
He's got
seven.
the
Yes.
basically.
that's what,
Yes.
that's what the golf course has been mowed with for many years.
I feel sorry for we're driving.
And,
It's a 1990.
and it's a hand-me-down from the city.
Mhm, the second one.
The second,
Oh. I'm,
you see the problem.
Did you guys ever get anything mowed all the time?
No, never all at once.
well, on what Christine was saying. What Kevin was going on, if there is something possible where you guys come across something possibly. And you guys kind of found something, couldn't you call a special meeting for it and we can approve something?
It still takes a week or 2 weeks. right?
We did
You
something,
got a matter of hours on some of this
But
stuff.
what I'm saying, if they come across something, because it has to be approved, we for us to go on it, then we call,
If she did the deposit thing or whatever, and then we
but then.
We're basically gonna give Christina permission to put the deposit down. It's kind of pre-approval on the assumption that we're going to approve whatever
They
they
come
come
up
up with.
we did something very similar when we bought that dump truck. I know,
We have the
I don't know if
authorization.
you were on yet or not. Max was on the council. We had talked about it. It was the same situation we were in. We were
Truck
going
was
into
there.
kind of winter at that time. We were looking for something. The truck was there. We needed to act now. So we went ahead, we put a deposit down and then ran it through quick and did the whole thing.
Well, that's what it's.
We basically did what we got to beforehand is we needed to decide that dollar amount that we were willing to spend. So as long as that's decided, then it's not an issue.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if they say, well, you put a deposit down, but we want to get paid.
Is it,
If they want to get paid full, like now. That's what I'm saying.
In my experience, most dealerships and other entities, even private, that work with governments, if a government puts a deposit down, they're gonna get the rest of the money. Governments don't do this unless they know they're just waiting for the final okay. And most of those parties pretty much know that.
about the budget?
I'm kind of leaning on their expertise.
Where is it coming out of? I mean, is it being put into the golf course,
Yeah.
their line?
Because no one else in the city, well, they could, but it's gonna get the most use on the course. Couldn't they use it at the park or at the? Not with that many trees and
There's
that
not that,
tightness
there's
and.
not many places that I
No,
can use that
cemetery.
machine. No, not the
Not the
cemetery.
cemetery.
no.
either.
No,
No.
we want the machine to last.
Well, the nice thing, you can lift two of the wings up and just use the.
Right.
I use that exact same thing for front lawn,
Mhm.
field, forest areas,
Most of our mowing is ditch.
which you don't want.
You know, that's a little top heavy for that. There, the ponds out there. No, we wouldn't. I mean, we're looking for something for the golf.
And you want to make it last, so.
Okay, well, you have anything else? I mean, I'm good with,
So they should go ahead and.
Yeah.
Look and go.
With the mindset that it wouldn't exceed 20,000.
with that mindset.
And
Like,
Is that doable?
roughly,
I guess we'll
I
try.
don't know.
you know,
Try.
there's one way to find out, I guess.
That's just it. Yep.
We gotta at least say that we're authorizing it or pre-authorizing it so that we can move forward. Otherwise, all we're doing is we're shopping.
Yeah.
We're not getting anywhere. We can't tell a dealership or something like that we're in it for the real haul if we don't have any money to back it.
If you find one, it's gone.
Right,
If you don't have anywhere to store it up.
correct.
Finance.
you know, and. Well, if it's 20 grand for that, then if they're to have shipping on top of it, over, roughly.
Yeah, depending upon where.
It depends.
Unless Kevin's wanting to go get it.
We have a trailer now.
Hey.
We can go get it.
Okay, well,
Well, you do it Tuesday, Mike.
Not going to Michigan.
No, not very nice. They do fit, but not very nice.
I don't know, I got vacation. It might be kind of a nice trip.
So I think everybody's agreed that. Move ahead with it.
And so just so it's clear, the board is pre-authorizing,
Yeah, without
Not to
actually voting on
exceed,
anything.
right,
Yeah.
not to exceed $20,000 in hopes that we will find a usable mower of this caliber with low miles and low years, low hours, thank you,
I know what you mean.
to make a final approval on the October 11th meeting.
If.
If something is
if
found.
something is found.
Okay.
I wouldn't be.
Within a reason. Because we're not gonna drive to Texas.
No,
I don't want us, I don't
No.
want, I also don't want to see us.
Wait,
jump
what?
the gun on-
What's wrong with that, Nick?
Gladwin, Florida.
Oh, I don't want
Let's go. We're gonna go. Let's do it.
But I don't want to see us jump the gun on it either. I want, a good solid decision.
So in order to confirm that, I will work with Kevin and send out whatever details you can give me, I can give to them so that they're abreast of the
Oh, yeah.
information.
That's all we can hope for. at
Yeah.
the moment. So,
I mean, we may, and we might end up short, we might not find anything, but we gotta
We
have
gotta
something
look.
to start.
I think John Deere has pretty good finance.
Say again?
I think John Deere has pretty good finance.
Well, look at him over there. His eyes are just like, ooh.
Because obviously the golf course is gonna be around for many and many, many years.
Right.
They could get something and then 4 years down the road. Oh crap, we need another $20,000.
Sure. So let me make sure I understand where I think you're coming from, Nick. Are you more in favor
Well,
of
what's-
investigating for something that is more on the newer side that can be financed? Just like we did our,
Rather
A
than
3-year-old
paying that
golf
huge
carts.
20,000 or a lump sum, I mean, what would be more affordable or easier for us? to
I understand.
manage?
so that's the conversation you guys can have.
Because coming up here, we're gonna be crunching, 20,000 is a lot for more, or if we can pay a quarter of that. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean,
you think we'd be better off? Long run?
'cause I know, I'm pretty, some of the dealerships might have pre inspected used ones or whatever,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
where you might pay an extra 10, 30 plus or whatever for it, but you know you're getting something that's been well maintained and is ready to go. That'll last twice as
Oh,
long,
there-
or if not longer.
Yeah, there are some out there that I looked at that are, in the 50 grand area, that are obviously a lot newer and less hours and all that kind of thing.
Are they, does John Deere do lease returns?
Some of that, but I don't know if it's a lot on those or not, because like the school thing is a common one where they would use a wide area mower like that. There's some state stuff, I think, in some places where they probably do. And that a lot of times would be some lease stuff.
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't buy anything that was owned by the state or municipality.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that.
No.
The problem is who else is there other than big commercial?
That's using those,
That's
exactly.
the problem.
That's an acceptable rate.
Oh, but
Well,
Yeah, I mean, any lease
What if they have
return
something?
type things are gonna be big commercial.
zero
operators.
years or more, or you looking at that?
The only problem is, I think you're not gonna get away from, the big hit. If we can find something like the one in Roseville, there, let's just take that one. The guy's asking 15 grand for it. Or best offer. I mean, if we can get them at 13 or something versus, okay, you're gonna go and buy a brand new one. Yeah, we can do it over 5 years maybe. And those are $85,000, $90,000 for that machine new. City price, 65, 70, something like that. Still looking at over $10,000 a year. Whereas you could just spend 13, 14, 15, whatever it is, the one time.
But then like 2 years down the road, you're putting $2,000, another year down, $2,000.
It's possible. I mean, that's the gamble that we gotta decide if we're gonna take that gamble or not. And obviously, maintenance is key. We all, you know that, running machinery.
Yeah, who does the maintenance?
Yeah, who is,
I don't know why you're all looking at me.
you know? Who's changing the oil on a golf cart?
Fair electric.
On the old one? Who
We
was?
do.
Huh?
We do.
The maintenance. So you're doing all the maintenance on the mower? You don't track, you don't have anything you have to take out new?
Except for the new mower.
Okay.
Who's doing that?
Oh,
And
MTI.
MTI,
MTI.
which I've sent some stuff down there with it, St. Paul or something.
Mhm.
We sent stuff down there and we've got it back and we've had to work on it ourselves. Because they either lied about what they did or they didn't do it properly. So I'm not too impressed with MTI.
Neither am I.
So some of this stuff that we can't fix ourselves. We have sent some stuff to Bogarts. We've had things repaired to some stuff. We've had to buy tires.
Yeah.
But those small things are things that Jim has been able to do. It's large problems that,
The problem we have, unfortunately, with few new mowers is we don't have a computer. Or they are protected. And they have to be put on a computer to diagnose what's wrong with them.
They have a little screen on them
They have a screen,
and it
but
doesn't
the
give you the code for what
the
the
code, it'll give you a code. But then inside that code is another code. It's
So
only,
they have to do it.
they have,
just like
they
any other
bring their
dealership.
computer to hook into that computer to read the other code.
Computer hack.
And this last time around, after 5 hours, and their computer still couldn't, they had to take it down there. They still couldn't figure it out.
but it's fixed.
But it, yes.
It's fixed now, but it took a while. So let's circle back to the rough mower.
So we're not gonna get a rough mower inside.
So now I'm hearing mixed requests, got some.
Well, I was
concerns.
just throwing it out there because.
No, it's valid, we should. We should.
Well, can we get a couple
Options?
options like that?
So are we saying we're gonna
Should
go
we look
ahead
at
with this and
general fund
see
before we talk
if we
about
find anything, then if we don't, then are we gonna back up with this other newer purchase? Is that, are we trying to juggle both of them so we can get the best deal or?
I don't know about juggle, just find the best deal. Because we have to obviously figure it out whether we want to spend $15,000 or $20,000 on something used that has over $2,000 on it, or we find something that we make last. If we want to spend $20,000 on a mower, let's do it.
Instincts say go this way.
On the used.
Mhm.
Yes, that's kind of where
I'm kind of going that way too, because not too long ago, we weren't too high on the golf course being in operation, so.
How long is the lease for the golf cart?
5.
So it's gonna be at least open 5 months.
Yeah, so, and I got. I had all these people staring me down here that day for their vote for,
You shouldn't be relying on other people. You should, you know what I mean?
I know, but, and it was like, I think we should just go with, see what he can come up, they can come up with.
And I agree with that too. I just throw another option, so we weren't screwed in 2 years when the lawnmower broke down. I
And
know,
we should get
I'm
some,
around equipment quite a bit. let's go with the used one. And
But any other thoughts?
But we should get a maintenance program set up.
they got $3,000 a month.
No, I mean somewhere around here that somebody just with, the stuff. You know, if your deck bearing goes off, who's doing it?
Are you mean,
Find somebody to do it.
That's what I'm saying. If
Yeah.
the deck bearing goes out, who's gonna replace it?
who's gonna be that person?
Who's,
Who's that
where,
maintenance?
where are we gonna bring it to? No, that's, you know, we're gonna, I mean, he had that problem with any of the mowers. We talked about that before, having.
Well, but I guess what I understand what you're saying is that we need to know that there's somebody available to work on this stuff. And we used to have some people, but they're all retired.
Well, what do you two suggest? What would you like to see?
As far as maintenance,
No, as far as the mower.
I,
What would fit the golf course then? For our community to go?
as far as I'm concerned at this point in time, I'm just throwing out my ideas that I think are the right thing, and then I'm just backing away. I'm letting you guys make that decision. Because the thing about it is that I've been up and down this road of being in the way of bullets from these people that don't agree with what we're doing. And I'm not gonna be in the way of that anymore. I'm gonna let you guys make decisions, but I've brought this paperwork here because of the fact that I kind of think that's the way we ought to go. I agree, Mike brought that up and I agreed with it. And in the first place, he brought it up, and I agreed with that more because I happen to feel that that's a pretty good mower. That's my opinion. I've been around them a long time too.
My opinion, you know, using in my head versus my heart, I think the way to go right now, the way, you know, with the golf course in mind, is to go with the used mower. I mean, granted, it'd be beautiful to have all new equipment, but let's be realistic. It's not being realistic. Going with the used mower at this time, let the golf course get up in the morning. Then we can maybe down the pike, look at something new. But at this time, I would say a used mower is the way to go.
Because realistically, by getting this larger mower, it's not gonna run as much as what we've been doing before.
No, we're running 5 days a week, 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day. And a lot of times we're playing catch up for us because it's a 53-inch deck on that mower. And we're mowing 36 acres of rust.
This is double the deck and more land speed.
Right.
It'll cut the mowing in half.
Right.
The other thing too is that my recommendation would be that one way or another, that somehow somebody is found that is, you know, on retainer or however it is that's available to do normal right maintenance on the equipment. You can't constantly be doing this equipment halfway because I'm a lawnmower, not a lawnmower fixer kind of a thing. And that's the problem. You got these guys wearing all kinds of hats out there. It just doesn't work for you.
That's what we had talked about before, is you gotta have a service to work on. Gotta have a company to work on.
So that's just, I'm not a big fan of not maintaining it.
Yeah.
See, if we maintain our own equipment, buying a used mower would make.
Not the greaser. With the used mower, so my vote.
so what's the procedure? So do you guys have a maintenance schedule? Do you not use a maintenance schedule, or you just fixing it as you go? Or how how does that
No,
work?
there's certain things we have to do,
Okay,
like, if you look at the equipment, the hours are like on the oil filters and everything. We know when the oil has to be changed, when the hydraulic oil has to be changed, when this has to be, that's all there.
that's all done.
You know, that's just routine maintenance, general maintenance. It's when we get into, you know,
Other thing,
a
bigger
spindle
stuff.
breaking, already with, the other rough mower, you know, belts breaking. You know, that type of thing. Those things happen.
Mhm. Absolutely. So is that more of a small engine or is that more of like a bobcat place? I mean, what are we looking at for a person? If we're looking at having those maintenance and having them on hand, is that what you're getting to? Is knowing who we're gonna take these to when they break down?
Well, yeah, service.
Okay. So are we just picking whoever can get it in for these services or?
No, we're gonna have to look. Well, going with the bigger mower like this, somebody like Frontier
Okay,
out here, you know, somebody like Frontier. You know, it's a diesel engine, turbo, right? Somebody,
so is that something that should be checked out prior to purchasing this? That way we know that there's somebody in
no,
the area?
not
or-
necessarily, I think.
Okay.
We're talking standard routine maintenance here, or we're talking when a motor goes out?
We're just amazed.
I mean, if we're talking standard routine maintenance, it should be done in-house.
That's it, that's what I just
That's
said.
how he was just saying, so I'm just trying to
That's.
catch up here,
Is
where,
there a book on all this out there?
Hmm?
Is there a book out there somewhere with all the maintenance records?
Not per se, I mean, it's,
Well, it tells you what
Yeah.
maintenance intervals
yeah, the books
are.
we have on, yeah.
I mean, no, I mean, is this all written down somewhere? I mean, is this all just on out there? So is this documented out there that you, for this mower, you changed the oil on this many hours or?
It should be,
Well, how do you know how many hours to change the oil on?
if you look at the oil filter,
Plain marked hours on the board.
Yeah.
Oh,
your air filter, everything has got the hours when it was last changed.
Oh, you're going on,
Right,
okay,
hydraulic filter, oil filter,
see, that makes
you
sense,
write the hours down on it.
that makes sense.
You guys have a service record?
100%. Everything.
Should be,
So something
For
should
every
be,
piece of equipment.
It's easy to make because,
something should be implemented at least.
yeah,
You gotta
because out
Spreadsheet,
there,
something.
every
Say,
book,
How many hours?
like every mower out there or that we have a book on has a maintenance record right in it. All you gotta do is copy it and just implement the guys use it. That's the problem, is getting people to write in there what they did.
who's in charge?
I'm in charge. However,
There you go. All right,
So we want to get permission? You know, there's a bunch of people nodding.
I'm in, I'm good.
Did you get that recorded?
yeah.
Yeah.
YouTube.
No, there's one other thing.
Yeah, that's it. Pump drive.
Can I throw out one other thing, before the pump drive or the pump part of it? The little episode, last Monday with Kurt Dempsey.
Okay,
I was disappointed in the way that went for a couple of reasons. One thing is, as a golf board member, I feel that I have allowed myself to get really caught up in all the politics and BS of not only the city, but the golf course as well. Overlooking one of the most basic, simplest things that we have going on out there, that when our customers come and beat the crap out of their cars and our golf carts going across our parking lot, which is the first place they come into, we have overlooked that, not only this year, but for the last 40 years, and have not done anything about it. And Kurt had a really good suggestion that crushed granite will probably solve most of that problem. Blacktop obviously would be great, but it's not gonna happen. The crushed granite isn't that expensive. I was very disappointed when I came out there a couple of days later and saw 3 loads of class 5 gravel, which is our already current problem, that every time we get a gusher like last night, it just washes down the dang hill. And if the money that was spent on that 3 loads of class 5 was spent on that granite along with Kurt's $200, we probably would have had a kind of a nice looking parking lot and would have solved our problems. Well,
Somebody brought it today.
okay.
No, the gravel they brought in
Mhm.
was basically to get everything leveled out,
Okay, but when you're,
and they're putting crushed granite on top.
okay, all right, and that's fine, but you should be cutting those dang gullies out of there rather than just filling them with gravel. You're just gonna wash out again.
I'm good on my, because I know that when I was out there, they were out there with the skid steer plowing everything up.
Okay, all right.
So,
And you should, you gotta cut. the-
Exactly what we did. Yeah.
Because I came out there and I saw 3 loads of class 5 and I'm like, what
Yep.
the hell?
but I
No,
think
I cut all the washout valleys out, cut that hill down a little bit, so it wasn't as steep right there, right as you go down to the path.
Mhm.
Cut that stuff out. We actually did a little diversion channel in there. If you saw that, once we got done out there or not.
No, I have.
We raised the edge of the parking lot a little from the road so that all that water, see, that whole intersection was draining right
Right.
to the parking lot.
Yep.
Terrible design, terrible. They raised that a little to try to get that to bypass down to the ditch. Couldn't get any granite last week because the pit wasn't open. So we got it as soon as we could get it. So
Okay.
there is a load down there now. And again, out there, I'm just doing what I'm asked to do.
Right, no, and I just, the thing is I was just disappointed because I saw 3 loads of class 5.
Assuming that was the only thing going down.
Right, and I think, didn't we have a text or something about that we were gonna wait on granite until next spring or something?
well, that's what Mike and I had originally talked about, but then they.
So that was the last
did-
conversation.
That was the last conversation
Yeah,
you and I.
okay. All right, so,
I believe the problem has been remedied.
and that's great, that's perfect, because, it's something that we should have done something about a long time,
Probably.
and I'm just as responsible as everybody else, because I banged my stuff over that thing too.
Well, and it's just a miserable, terrible
Yeah.
spot.
Yep.
To have put in a parking lot.
Yep.
It's the worst you possibly could have done. So,
It's
It's just what we have to deal with.
So I would hope that
I'm satisfied.
you're satisfied.
Yep, oh yeah, and more importantly, I hope Kurt is satisfied, because Kurt represents a lot of our customers.
Right.
And if Kurt's not satisfied, chances are there's gonna be other customers that aren't. So, moving on, sorry.
So we can, no problem. Glad it was addressed. Onto the pumps.
Right.
Jim will give you the backstory. every time.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, this pump drive that you got pretty, this is to replace the existing clay valve that's in the pump valve. This is our irrigation system. This is what runs. So basically, it's the heart of the irrigation system, is the clay valve. 38 years ago, the clay valve was state of the art. Well, it's not anymore. And the last 6 years, they've been up here 4 times to work on that clay valve because we keep losing the pressure where the irrigation system doesn't work properly. Therefore, the greens aren't getting the water they need, so we have problems on the greens. So to rectify that problem is to replace it with the pump drive. All I can tell you is if we don't replace it, we're just going to end up with more problems. This year with the drought, we lost about a quarter of one green where we had to resod and reseed. Only because even though the system would work, it didn't have the pressure we needed to cover the entire green with water, so it ended up having what they call a localized dry spot, which eventually shed the water, so the taking water was eventually that area of the green. So it's not going to get any better with playback. It's just going to get worse.
So the current pump lasts 30 years.
38 years.
Maybe 30 minus the 6. Jim, did you attain the electrical code?
No,
Okay, so we don't
no,
know.
I talked to him about it and he said it's not gonna be any big deal. We're gonna use all the same wires. We're just gonna take these boxes off the wall and screw new ones on. Just gotta have
So
an
maybe
electrician.
an hour's worth of.
Yeah, I mean, we talked
Their
about
time.
4 to 5 hours or $400 to $500,
Mhm.
but he said no.
It's probably gonna be less than
Yeah,
that.
it's more of a coordinate.
Than it is either, yeah, because the quote that the board has in front of them doesn't include an electrician to come in and swap that over. The old, we need to have a licensed electrician to do so.
But he said it won't require any tree.
Oh, that's even better. Because we thought we were gonna need one.
Yeah, no, he said all the same wires will be reused. That's whatever.
And this will be done this year? Is that what you're thinking?
Open.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
right. I know that you've had a lot of problems with clay valve.
I'm gonna suggest it's not gonna be done this year. When I talked to him, they said that.
No, because
When you talk to Toro,
how busy they
He
are.
said, that there could be a chance in early November, but no.
Okay.
Yeah, he said that at this point in time, there's no point in counting on it. He said we have planned for spring and it needs to be booked.
that's what I was gonna
Now,
say.
for
We-
spring.
If it can get authorized, then it
Yeah.
can get on their
Yeah.
schedule so that we know when it's
I
gonna
mean, we
start.
can deal with it now.
Yeah.
Mother Nature is helping us immensely.
Mhm.
But they've just gotten really booked up when I talked to them.
So this quote is actually probably not gonna be, I mean, it's gonna be close, but it's not gonna be our,
Yeah, will it be
Exactly.
valid if we book it now for next spring? That's what we need to find out.
I can call them now. I'll call tomorrow.
You want it on the
Yeah,
October
If
12th?
the board decide, if they say, yeah,
Mhm.
the council said, yeah, we're gonna do it, and I call them tomorrow,
Mhm.
we might be able to lock in this price, even though it's gonna be next spring.
Yeah, then we can budget for it for next year,
yeah, and it comes off next
on the
year.
22 budget.
Yeah. Well, it's been sitting there, this is so many years now. It predates all of us, basically.
Mhm.
But for-
Oh, no.
I wish I could-
Spent over the last 4 years. Keep it
My
going.
God, you know, that's great.
Hold that price right there.
Yeah, just or paying the hand water when,
Yeah,
you know. Yeah,
So, so try to get it locked in and then.
get it
put this
locked
on the
in, Jim,
agenda
and
for the 11th.
we'll get it taken care of.
I can call him right away in the morning, and then I can call you.
Okay.
And you can-
If anything changes, I'll let them know. Okay,
Thank you for coming, Kevin. You're out of here.
Good, thank you. See ya.
All right,
Enjoy those.
you can have one on your way out.
I'm okay.
All right, back to normal. Old business.
So the Public Works Police Facility, I don't have any further updates from the
Now
council
we're
meeting.
on hold.
Right.
Can you tell me what that, yeah, really what that is?
Oh, of course, of course. I'm so sorry, you guys. Just
Backstory on
keep doing that, and I'll keep remembering. So, the Public Works Police Facility, project is, the project we've been working on for a year and a half to replace the existing maintenance and police buildings. The city's been pre-approved from USDA rural development for, I think it's a 2% 30-year loan to build a more suitable maintenance shop. And on one end will be a new police department, which will subsequently replace 1, 2, 3, 4 areas that are used for those departments going forward. And its proposed location is over at the end of Industrial Boulevard, past Head Start, past Anderson's, where the old J.C. ball fields used to be. The city has deeded ownership to those parcels, and that's where this facility will go. And then when everything is said and done, other entities will get them sold back and put back on the property, on the tax roll. So at this time, the reason it's on hold is due in part to having bidding authorization only coming as of the first part of September from USDA, and it is now mid-September. The council did not find it suitable to try to get bids to do this. We can't really start right now.
Right.
It's spring, Jane.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna bid for starting in January. So I'm leaving it on your work session agenda if something else comes up, because the only thing I know that Mike is changed since our last conversation is he's requesting Stephen Rose flip-flop the building, basically, so that the water and sewer department is more in close proximity to the water plant, and that on the end of Industrial Boulevard, the first end of the building you'll get to is the police department, which would have no traffic anyway. And that's not going to cost us anything, and it's not going to delay anything. Angela Baca-White from USDA said those types of changes don't usually hold up projects that long. But it was a brain idea that Mike had just less than a month ago, that it made more sense for them to have more closer accessibility to the water plant than having to back out Industrial Drive, go back down Summit, and then come back up the access road to the water plant.
Having the public works building next to the water plant kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
It also it would also create a lot more security for our police department.
I can't.
Yeah.
We kind of know where it's at, but we haven't toured it and visited it. The one in Bemidji I've been through, so maybe we can get Mike to give us a little tour of that, so we can just kind of get a better, a visual in our head.
Coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bond updates.
I included in your packet the most recent report from Kraus Anderson. And Melissa's here to speak to the chaos with the kitchen closing today officially. So this is when the real nuts and bolts actually happen. That partition wall between the two businesses is up now.
Part of it is.
Part of it
They've
is.
got it sealed off. So the kitchen is now sealed from both ends.
Pass through.
So it is completely empty. There's, I believe all the stainless steel is out, all the fixtures are out. The electricians were there taking out the switches and receptacles and taking down walls.
Yeah, this is when things are really gonna start.
Yes.
The off-sale, kind of sales system got moved to its new
New
location.
spot, and it's up and running.
And that's up and running. In the last week and a half, we've worked on migrating all of the computer systems.
So our office is now officially moved all the way to the back where it's supposed to be.
Yep. We've had Paul Bunyan Communications add a second phone line that's only going to be on the off-sale side. Because with this full partition of the two businesses, you're not sharing one phone line going back and forth between the two businesses anymore and having that free access.
So that accessibility is not there like it used to be.
Right.
Because now you will have walls and doors in the way.
So
Then that's.
Exactly.
And that's what we're doing.
Exactly.
We're now staffing bar staff, kitchen staff.
and off-sale, yeah.
And they think that next week we'll be taking down that wall and becoming one with the new addition for the
Oh,
off-sale.
the wall with the existing north wall.
Existing north wall should be coming down next week for us to open it up and start.
Did you have a distributor deliver for that door already today?
No, they were dropping equipment or something. I think our shelving came.
Your
in.
shelving came in. Okay. The fixturing for off-sale.
Fixtures for off-sale, I think, came today.
There's a lot of things that are happening all at the same time, so it's a little overwhelming,
It's very overwhelming at the moment.
but we'll get through it. Yep. Your customer base is coping.
They are.
Just let them drink more.
They are. Everybody's adjusting very well. We're still getting the comments of, well, we could have done it better and quicker. If we...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Everything's a process.
And it is. And a lot of stuff we're still waiting on. Some of our stuff is still out. Shipped out date is, you're still looking at end of September, end of October for some of our stuff. So that's what some of the holdup is. So some of the projects aren't going forward as fast as we would like, just due to manufacturing and
If
shipping.
anybody's ever been through a remodel retail level, you'll understand that nothing gets done quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
Target's going through their remodel again, and if you've gone to them 1 week and then go back the next week, you know the same place you got your paper towel is not the same place it was last Sunday.
Terrible.
Same thing for a grocery store, same thing for anything that's major. Internal remodels are not quick.
But we're getting very good positive feedback on the bar or on the new off-sale side, new cash wrap and everything, so. I think once everything can get a little more finalized, it's gonna be fine. Everybody seems to be pretty compassionate for us, I guess, understanding, so. We haven't really had a whole lot that I've noticed of any negative feedback on any of it.
Biggest concern, I think, is the sewer.
They are working on that right now.
They are doing it right now, so
They were cutting concrete and talking blueprints this afternoon.
Perfect. Get that.
So they've got to get the electricians in there to get everything capped off and done first before they can obviously open and start really getting into that project.
For you, those of you that were not here last summer when we discovered and had the line cameraed, the line that connects the kegs all the way through the bar into the kitchen and out underneath the building has a collapse in the pipe under the ground.
So our drain, what she's saying is our drain lines out of the bar that go into the kitchen and then out
The sewer
to
line
the sewer line.
has a
has a
collapse in
collapse
it.
line.
And it just happens to be underneath between the drain of where the existing office is and to the men's room. That's one of the reasons everything's getting ripped up and the office is moving. So when this is fixed, things are going to be much better. That was just one of the problems we're trying to fix from God knows how many years it's been like that.
A lot.
Yeah.
So yes, but everything seems to be going forward. And as soon as electricians, they've started taking the walls down. So by the end of this week, we should have something more definite on.
Any other questions? Seems to be moving right along. We're good.
Thank you.
Welcome.
American Rescue Plan.
I have nothing more to update you guys on.
Everybody's clear on what that one is?
No.
Okay.
So the American Rescue.
Like, where do I sign up?
American Rescue Act Plan funding was authorized by the federal government in February. All of the governing entities from the state, county and local governments are getting a portion of it. It works similar to the CARES Fund Act funding that was given to the states and the cities and the counties last year during the pandemic. But there's some tweaks to it. We have a wider timescale to use the money, and it's not as constrictive as it was last year, except for the one element of a revenue replacement make up if you lost anything in terms of revenue, which I haven't been able to show yet. Calculations on all for cities, at least on the League of Minnesota cities. So what we've done as a city so far is we've received our first half of our payment of a little over $44,000, and the board has authorized the transfer it to the reserve accounts until we have all of it, and we as a city can figure out how we want to spend that money. I can provide the new board members some of the back information that I get from the League of Minnesota cities and kind of see what it can and cannot be used for. We have till 2024 to utilize all the funding. There's a lot of government entities that are not using it right off the bat because they want to have a good plan and not just jump the gun. We had to have all of our money spent by November 1st last year. So the plans of what we used it for was a lot of employee payroll and PPE and those types of things that were pandemic related last year. This year's a little different.
Yeah,
That's just kind of a short summary.
Mhm.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, that was.
And the stump jumpers.
So the Blackduck Stump Jumper Snowmobile Club's public parking lot is for the new board members is going to be located out on MnDOT 71 next to Redneck E's Tractor Ranch. The stump jumpers in the city combined and got a grant from the federal government to acquire some land from Matt's Barbie to purchase an area of property to provide a public parking lot for snowmobile parking. The acquisition of the property is completed. I am awaiting one final piece of paperwork from the city attorney to comply with the regulations to get reimbursement for the acquisition. And our city attorney is now still working on a draft of a long-term lease with the Blackduck Stump Jumpers to provide that, because the city, by the grants requirement, has to be the owner of the property. So we'll be entering into a long-standing lease with the Snowmobile Club so that they can utilize the property for what they plan to do with it, including being able to have their groomer parked in that area and allow public parking for anybody that wants to use this area as a connection to the state trails in the wintertime.
It'd be a nice trailhead.
Is that garage on it?
It is
That garage getting torn down?
not yet.
No, I mean,
In the future, yes, the stump jumpers would like to build something new there.
so that's gonna be left, that tree and the garage is gonna be left there?
Yeah, they'll do some cleanup when they do the site work for the parking lot
Oh,
done,
okay.
but at this time, the building's gonna remain.
Okay, I was just kind of curious
Yeah.
how that was working out there.
That's all on there.
Yeah, any of the only thing that the city has basically done, Bobby Joe, is act as the facilitator of the grant. The money how much money the piece of property cost, 75% of it was from the grant money. The rest of it, the Snowmobile Club is actually going to pay for. And then they're actually paying for all the materials and the labor to build the parking lot. It won't be a paved parking lot, it'll be a gravel parking lot, so it won't be an ADA parking lot, but it'll have enough accessibility right off the state highway for trucks and trailers. For snowmobiles, yeah.
Gravel can't be ADA, no,
Nope,
it's gotta be concrete or
or bituminous.
pavement. Next door.
Okay, so the downtown redevelopment project for 32, 40, and 48 Main is still moving forward. Last we discussed at the council meeting, the hope was still to be able to take the buildings down in October. Since the council meeting, the architect and engineer and the contractor that's going to be doing the demolition have had a site visit on all three buildings. I've also had the asbestos inspector do another site inspection of all three buildings to determine the cost of the asbestos mitigation. It does appear as though the window of the demo that the contractor had is not going to be enough time to take it down on further inspection and what Stephen Rose, the architect, believes. So in the process of all those buildings need to be removed. So the project itself is going to get pushed off until 2022 so that it's taken down safely and appropriately without jeopardizing the adjacent buildings. However, the plan is to continue moving forward with any construction work that needs to do on the awnings, and the asbestos mitigation hopefully will be still done either starting the end of this week or next week.
Good one's done.
Get that out of there.
Yep.
Where it falls.
Exactly. I don't know, sir, Kurt's here to discuss something with us.
Yep, so.
I
I don't know, you wanna talk about golf course? I'm a golfer, right? So I was here earlier this summer and we talked a little bit about the sales tax work that we're gonna be pursuing. So at that time, I talked mostly about two of the big items that we need to kind of complete by the end of January is a project list. And what that is in your request, you have to list all the projects you might use that sales tax money for. And the other big component is what type of regional significance would those types of improvements have in your application. So we're getting to the point now where things are winding up a little bit in the construction season, and that list is going to getting put together. A lot of them are coming right off your capital improvement plan that we've already got. Those are pretty straightforward improvements, sewer, water, street type thing. But in early summer, I asked, to be thinking about maybe some other things that you'd like to try to get on that list. That would maybe be good projects. We talked a little bit about improvements out at the campground, among other things. So we're now to that point where I was thinking about this on the drive up today, how best to handle that. And you can get my email address from Christine. So probably if you've got ideas, just go ahead and email. So part of what I talked about earlier this summer wasn't real clear what's eligible and what's not eligible, and we were going to do some research on that. We haven't done a lot of research, but I just got an email today actually from one of our young engineers that was tasked with that said he finally found some really good information on what you can and can't use those types of funds for. So what I kind of like to request right now is if you don't have my email, get it from Christina. Go ahead and send some of your ideas that you'd like on that list. We're going to start assembling some of the things that we already know are going to be on that list. And then probably what's going to happen is I'm going to send out a blast here in a couple of weeks that will say, here's the kind of things that we think we can have on our list, but here's some of the things we know we can't have on our list. So that maybe you'll see something on that we can list and say, we have talked about that for a few years, but yeah, there's a project would fall under that. Let's throw that on. Now, this list isn't what all you're going to do, but it needs to be on that list if you're ever going to use those funds for it. A good example would be International Falls will generate maybe $20 million worth over the life of their sales tax. They have close to $100 million worth of projects. Mostly because in 15 years, they didn't want to say, boy, we should really do this project. And then it's not on our list, so we can't use any of that sales tax money. So it's really almost like a wish. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to do the project, but if it's something that you think, hey, maybe we'd like to tap into some of those dollars, we need to have it on that list in this process.
And for the legislature to approve a 0.5% sales tax increase specifically just for the city, we have to prove that regional significance and provide to the legislature what we're going to use that money for if it's approved, so that this Department of Revenue sends it to us.
So the more wide-ranging projects that we have, things like out at the park, obviously, if we did some improvements out there, that's more for regional use. We still need to do a little more research on some of those arguments that have been accepted in the past by the state as far as regional significance. That regional component is fairly new in this process. I want to say it's 3 years. So there's not a lot of examples of cities. This is what we showed in our application to show that there was regional. So I know there's more research that we're going to be doing on our end before the application begins on that component. With a wider range of possible projects we can have on our list, is going to make it easier for us to put that together.
And just a key point on that timeline is one of the reasons we're doing this now is because in addition to the legislature giving us pre-approval to do this, then the referendum has to be passed by the voters too. So we're looking towards the 22 general election, having this on the ballot. So the last time it went in front of the voters was 2018 and it didn't pass. At that point, there was no component from the statutes requiring a regional significance claim. Now it does because it changed in 2019. Also prior to 2019, the city just needed to have it voted upon and passed by the taxpayers. And then it went on to the legislature for approval. Now it's completely reversed. So we need to get our representatives on board first, and then we pass it or put it in front of the voters to pass it. Once that's done, we're looking at not receiving any revenue from it until third quarter 2023.
So have they changed how that has to be worded
Oh yeah,
on the ballot?
there's many cities that have done it a lot more user-friendly, I guess I could say, Max. The one that International Falls passed made sense. To a regular everyday voter, it didn't sound like you're gonna raise my taxes so you can, take $4 million of general obligation bonds and tax me to death. Now it sounds a lot more.
It's easy to understand.
It's more easier to understand. The ballot question that International Falls had in 2018 was, shall the city of International Falls, Minnesota be authorized to impose a sales and use tax of 1% to finance transportation and infrastructure projects? That was their question. Ours was a lot more in depth when we did it in 18. And we were using samples then that the Department of Revenue and the statutes used, and it clouded people's judgments. And it's unfortunate, but as that election judge, as soon as I open that door on election day, I can't be the advocate for what we're doing. I can't tell you how to vote. I can't educate you on what's on the ballot. So a lot of people in that year really asked for my advice and wanted to understand it, and I couldn't do anything at that point. I don't have that role that way. So had it passed, if I could, maybe, I don't know. It is what it is at this point. So we're just trying to move forward to try and make sure it's an option for the city of Blackduck in the future so that we have money for our streets and our infrastructure and our other regional needs. So I'll get the email I'll get Kurt's email to you guys, but,
So if we rate, say we use this money, we can use this money for like our sewer and.
whatever we put in the proposal.
That-
And it has to be specific, so, certainly, the streets and sewer and water improvements are very straightforward, very common, we know those are out. But this list can't just say, we're gonna do sewer improvement, it needs to say, we're gonna replace sewer main from this street to this street. You have to have actual projects with the estimated costs. So it's a big spreadsheet, really, that kind of accompanies it.
So the city already has a capital plan that adopted in 18. Probably needs another revision
Yeah,
since
there'll be
then,
some cost revisions in
Yep.
there.
but we'll be utilizing those numbers that Woods have created for us for that portion of it.
But that's why I was kind of curious, so it has to be actually broke up back.
Mhm. It has to be
It does.
specific projects, not general types of projects. It has to be actual projects.
So we can't just put down pipe tap.
No.
You have to put down what you're gonna repair.
Yeah. That makes sense.
You guys have any questions for Kurt? other than that?
So then if we come up with ideas, like the bike path,
Mhm.
and that's deemed regionally, how do we come up with a number?
A cost for it,
Right.
that's what we're gonna be, me and Caleb, another engineer, will be putting those numbers together, working with Mike a little bit on how certain projects he kind of envisions, and then we'll be putting a cost to
And
it.
we can use some of the numbers we did when we put in too.
Sure.
And take an age limit to it and add cost of increase to it. I mean, there are some defaults to the bike path, for an example, but not everything is completely not usable at this point.
Right.
And it, you're just doing your best judgment on those costs. So just as an example, if you're thinking, okay, we're gonna want on that list that these 5 blocks of paving, that we're gonna want on the list, and we put a cost to it. In 8 years, if you decide we're gonna do that project, you're not held to, well, we only put this dollar amount on it, so this is all. It's just, you're supposed to put your best guess of what that project might get, just so they can kind of look at what this is just conjecture, but I'm thinking what they're saying, okay, we're gonna approve a sales tax and it's gonna generate this amount of money, and they only have about half that amount of money on their project list. So where's all that rest of that money going? So I think that's maybe where this whole thing came from, where they want to receive detail of what are you gonna possibly spend this money on, just so they can really see the need. I mean, an example, again, we'll go back to International Falls. I'm sure the legislators look at, okay, we're gonna approve something that might generate them 20 million, and they've got $80 million worth of projects they have to get done. Well, they show a need that they need to figure out a way to pay for some of those things. So I think that's kind of the root of why this more detail is in the process.
You said there's already you've already got kind of a
Yep.
plan.
Yep, I can send it to you
Thank
guys.
you.
Absolutely.
I don't want to keep throwing ideas
Nope.
out there that you've already got down.
Yep.
That's already on the list. Well, that's all right.
Does anybody else have any questions for Kurt while he's here? City engineer.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kurt.
I'll probably be back next month. Talk a little bit more about some of the more specific requirements of that list.
Very good.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grab a cookie.
Just want to take them home.
I've been road snacking all day today.
Wow. You didn't poison them. I'm serious.
Untitled G.
Okay, so, this was brought up at the last meeting. It was discussed that we would do, an amendment to chapter 3, salaries of mayor and council members, salaries. I included a revised option based on the conversation from the last meeting. You can see the comments and how it would change if that is indeed the way the board wishes to amend this. If you do, then I will move forward on making sure there's a publication in the paper prior to the October 11th meeting so that I may do the first reading.
I have a question.
Okay.
So the mayor gets 175 per month
For each council meeting.
per in salary under subdivision 1.
That's how it reads.
Yes, I read that earlier today and I wrote it down, so
That's the question.
yeah, that's the question. Is it supposed to be per meeting?
No, because you have that special meetings and commission meetings down below. So this is assuming what the interpretation is that that's the council meetings. When this was adopted in 2003, work sessions, I don't believe even happened. So if we want to add specific language to this, that would be the time now. Instead of per month, it would be per council meeting. Because your special meetings, board and commission meetings would also should include your work sessions. That's how the city's been paying the board members since I started anyway, and prior to me.
Well,
So if you want it to be really detailed, now would be the time to revise it.
well, that would make sense if we're revising it now, bring it up to date,
Right.
then we should have the wording correct, I would think.
So then my
So no
question is
longer-
that instead of per month, it's going to be per council meeting, regular council meeting.
And
Right now, the way the city's been interpreting this ordinance, the mayor gets paid $150 per regular council meeting and $25 for each additional meeting. The councilors have been paid $50 for every regular council meeting and $25 for each additional meeting.
Is this considered an additional meeting? This work session?
Yes.
And then on
So-
committees, when you get on different committees, those meetings that you have is also,
Correct.
okay.
And I know you're looking at me with like googly eyes, Nick, but that's been the interpretation of my administration, the administration before.
No, I'm not looking at you. Obviously, per month is.
Per
meeting,
month.
Because it's one council meeting, every other meeting is a special
Mhm.
meeting. Right?
Yep,
The wording.
that's how it's been interpreted.
The wording seems correct. This sounds weird.
But if you wish to have it specify the council meeting versus additional meetings, please let me know.
I'm good with it,
Good with what?
with the way it is.
Okay.
I mean, like Nick said, it's additional meeting means additional meeting.
It's any meeting other than the council meeting, correct?
Correct.
Whether it's an emergency meeting, a special meeting that's done with, in between a work session would be an additional, so, correct, okay. Then I think we all understand it.
okay, that's fine.
Is that,
Yeah, that's fine.
My question is, I have a question on CR5. The existing language says on the special meetings and board meetings is that this amount is limited to 2 meetings per month committee. I've not been abiding by this because we've had months where we've had like 2 golf board meetings in 1 month, plus a personnel meeting and a finance meeting in August, and that might be 1 council member going to all 4 of those. So I have not limited the board on that pay, so you want me to
Change that.
strike that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, because no matter what you're doing, if you're taking time out of your day
Right,
to,
Mhm.
you deserve something for that.
and then I guess to clarify on Don's point, with Lori's point in subdivision 2, section 2, I could state that one of those types would be the scheduled work session. Because it's not mentioned anywhere.
So we, yeah, because we do have scheduled work session.
Okay.
And like you said, I don't think they existed. Right?
It doesn't say that.
It doesn't,
20 years ago. There's no work.
So that's where I got confused when I read that. So,
I'm fixing that.
so that fixing that would
Clear that
clarify.
up. Yep.
Um,
Mhm.
anything else you can see that wouldn't want to be clarified?
No.
On one, huh? If everybody is good with the way that's
Yes.
worded out now.
Mhm.
H is the standing committees,
John's ready.
standing committees resolution. You know, the commented areas are the ones that would need an addition, change, revision, or shuffle the deck if someone wants to step off of one board. In this level of the game, we only have 3 months left in this year. I don't feel as though that's advisable at this point. There's just been too many things that have gone on between finance and personnel and golf. But I think if we shuffle the deck and move some people off those existing boards, it really has a lot of confusion. So
Let's, yeah. My big thing was just to replace Jason on. But I see that now I see Jace also.
yeah, now the personnel committee, Max, one of the reasons we had 3 department heads on that committee was because we were really low in council members too. I don't know if it's necessary for us to have 3 department heads on that. Well, in this case, it was 4 because I was already there.
And which one?
That would be the personnel committee.
Personnel.
Okay.
I'm more in favor of smaller committees than larger committees. Get more done with less people.
Mhm.
I like the department heads on the personnel committee meeting myself.
I think they should remain. I'm just not sure it's necessary to add another one.
Don't you
Oh, add
have
another
3?
person besides the
Jace
department
was
head?
already on there. Jace is no longer.
Oh, okay, Jason and Jason.
But when that position is filled,
Bring it back.
I would like to see that person come back to that table.
Well, yeah, because they're part of,
It just makes sense for why we set it up the way we did. Me anyways.
So when we hire a golf director, we can put that person on it too.
Possibly.
Okay,
How do you spell that? I'm just wondering, because I'm just curious to see how that comes out in the minutes.
3 G's, a couple A's, an R.
No, I guess I don't see the need for all department heads either. It is more of it is a council position, so. But if you want, we can wait. But we do need a counselor to sit on that committee, yes,
Personnel committee,
personnel committee.
I'm on it.
Don has been sitting
Sitting in for Jason.
since Jason has resigned, and we can keep that way as long as Don is okay with it.
Yeah, I'm good.
Get that done,
Yeah, I like it.
okay? We'll leave spaces open. Or do we want to,
We're gonna intern him and, or is he gonna just take over? Is that something that you
First-
shuffle at the beginning of the year? Is that what, okay, so
Yes.
he'll be interim until the beginning of,
Right.
okay.
Yep, before the January 1 meeting is established, or this will get shuffled for 22.
Okay,
At which point a new vice mayor gets selected as well, so each board member has an opportunity to take part in a different committee or board.
and how does that proceed? How does that work?
Much like
So-
we're doing right now.
Okay,
On the vice mayor, it's up to the board to nominate vice mayor. The rest of the committees just start moving around saying, yes, we'd like to try this out.
okay, so it's something that you,
Yeah.
well, that would interest me, I'd like to be on that
Absolutely.
committee.
Yes,
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And so are we just kind of making a list of what is going to get shuffled for the 2022?
We have a couple of seats we need to fill right now. Well, we can't do anything with public safety committee because that should be the chief of police at this time. I will more than likely, based on other conversations, will recommend the interim that's sitting on that's already working for us for that committee. But in terms of putting counselors in there, we would have an open seat for the golf board, and then the HRA obviously would end up being the existing full board. Now, the only way I would suggest it to get Bobby Joe and Lori on a board right now would be to take either the Public Works Committee, the Liquor Committee, or the Library Board.
All right, why was that sound like that?
And shift a new board member to one of those and have the existing board member that's on it step down. I'll let you talk off. Yeah.
So you're looking for somebody to volunteer for the library, is that what I'm understanding?
That was just a suggestion.
I'll try.
Yeah.
That's what you, yeah, I got this feeling that nobody wants this, so.
I enjoy it. They're a good bunch of gals. And you get to sit in on the regional meetings too, which are in Pine River.
yeah, maybe we should let her in on everything before she.
She already volunteered.
You know, it's the Pine River business, and, you know.
Throw me under the bus,
Hey, I was just giving you a. But
I heard
they
it,
are.
I felt it in the room. The library was like, boom, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be interesting.
No, you'll like it. The local ladies are really, they really communicate well. And same with the kitschy, they're a good bunch of people. Right now, they are letting do Zoom, so you don't have to drive there.
So our library is part of the Kitchen County Regional. Yeah. So they have 7 meetings a year. They have a representative from each entity that represents the organization. And in the past, it's always been a council member. So Nick's been filling that role. Is your second year? No. It would be technically, you started last summer, right?
Okay.
Yeah. For the last year. And because of sitting on the library, as a library representative, he's also sat on the local library board for Blackduck. So if you want to step down after that and I can put Lori in.
Yeah, that's fine.
You got plenty going on.
I do, and
Yeah.
I might have another thing.
Okay, I'm great.
Yeah.
Somebody's just gonna send me whatever, wherever I gotta show up.
How about you and Nick
How are you, group? text?
discuss
I'll,
and I.
you want me to just tell the ladies that
That would be nice.
the new council member's taking over?
Yeah, do you want to put Lori in touch with all those details?
I can, or I
Yep.
can tell Paula to get a hold of her.
Okay.
I can even email Christine over at Pitchy.
Okay.
Let her know that'll be transferred and I can forward her email address.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Um,
Probably won't be tonight, but it'll be sometime this week. So.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh,
so
there's a local meeting or an actual regional meeting.
you better attend that and then, because this is not gonna get adopted until October 11th.
I already stepped.
No.
I
What if-
remember accepting that.
I got a great idea.
Obviously, it'll be too late. So
Why don't you-
I'll do this meeting on Wednesday.
Or you could have Christine, like Lori, if you guys could be there. Place attend,
I'll email her.
yeah,
When I get home.
okay,
Then I'll email you and let you.
because that board has to. Sure. In addition to.
I'll bring them cookies too.
They're coming up.
They're getting chocolate too.
Now I really want one of your cookies. So then we need to put Bobby Joe on a board. Now, we do have a council member position open on the golf board, but that is a little bit of a conflict because our mom Pam works for this the golf course. No, I don't know if that's a direct conflict or not because it's not personnel.
Well, if she feels like it is, then it is.
Then it is,
So-
right.
And if you're not comfortable with it, that's what we don't want.
So my mom's.
Well, that could change in the future when we get this help director.
Like finance.
Well, Nick's already been through the budget, so I'd like to keep that for now.
I can get off the liquor committee, I can go on golf board.
Yeah, how many are you on, Dom?
3.
3? I feel like a slacker.
Huh?
I feel like a slacker.
Well, beginning of next
Well, you're gonna be on
week, we'll
HRA.
spread- We'll spread the wealth.
HRA.
Everybody's on HRA.
Everybody's on HRA.
Wait till you hit 7.
Okay, so I heard Don's gonna step down from liquor and Bobby Joe's gonna jump in.
Yeah,
There you
don't
go.
be on that liquor. Jeez, I got the library, you got the liquor. What's wrong with that? Huh?
I usually bust out a cake every time.
I would drink, so.
We haven't met since we started working on the remodel plans.
I don't feel like you need to drink to be on board.
No, you don't. Actually,
Maybe you do. I don't
Wait
know.
till you've been on there a while before you make that.
you might wanna. Okay, so
It does create a lot of revenue in this town.
this is what I have for revisions then. Personnel committee is remaining the same. Dawn is taking Jason Kolb's position. We're leaving the chief of police position open until either interim or it's filled. Liquor is, Dawn is stepping down and Bobby Joe is stepping in his place. Finance, Nick is going to continue filling that space that Jason Kolb was in. Public safety, that's gonna remain open until that seat is filled. Or the position is filled, I'm sorry. Golf board, Dawn is taking the place of Jason Kolb. Library board, Blackduck Library Board, Lori is taking the place of Nick, and Lori is also taking the place of the Kitchen County Regional Board, and then your HRA, the 2 vacant seats will be filled by your 2 new board members.
Yeah, you're gonna be on board.
I noticed that there isn't a council member on the board.
And the Sandy Miller and Megan Klein were just approved because we had no one when we put that in. So we could add a council member as well. or we keep it the way we have it until the beginning of the year. We had one meeting, and that was the first meeting we've had. My goodness.
Since before I started.
Sam Christensen was on the
Same.
council when I had a Park and Trail board meeting. It was a long time ago,
So it wouldn't be-
2016.
It wouldn't be too bad to add someone.
It wouldn't, no. And one of the reasons we even had the meeting was because the conversation at the time was, does the golf course become a special revenue fund versus an enterprise fund? Do we combine everything as a Parks and Rec department? There was all this kind of conversation, but also to resurrect the Park and Trail board so that more people were involved in what was going on at the campground and wayside. And, Mike had a lot of new things that were happening at the campground. And it was a good meeting, I thought. I mean, Sandy Miller works for the forestry office, so she has a good thing on what's going on regionally as well. So she was a good fit.
Megan Klein, she's my teacher.
Yep.
Daniel's teacher.
Yep. Her dad is Charlie Anderson at the grocery store.
Oh. I just.
You just put two and together? So I'm hearing we want to add one person to the Park and Trail board being a counselor, and that would be Bobby Joe. We'll just leave, we're still gonna leave Sandy. Okay. All right. Anything else? Meeting of a revision. And we'll make those changes and present that on the 11th for final approval. Okay.
Did someone say, what is HRA?
Oh. Housing Redevelopment Authority. It's a localized, it's a board that provides the city the ability to levy to have housing improvement. We're gonna talk about that. Because we're on the budget now, right?
Yep, we are there.
Okay.
Do business.
Okay. Alrighty. So I got a couple of documents in front of you guys. Oh, you want this? Sure. You have that? Copies if you guys don't have them.
I like yours better. It's just,
There's just a couple extra paper copies if you guys follow along better with that. Okay, so I provided you guys the minutes from the last two finance committee meetings as well. Those are in this packet, but I will try to provide a quick and easy summary of how we came to the proposed 2022 levy. This first document you're looking at is 2 pages. It goes over the biggest highlights for 22. On a revenue side, we're proposing an increase of $44,861 to the tax base of the levy. And local government aid, that's our government aid we get from the state of Minnesota, increased 5203. That's been certified already, so we'll receive $283,737. And I'm proposing that we still continue with the liquor fund transfer of $65,000. Just to keynote for new board members, we're only going over the general fund. We're not doing golf, we're not doing liquor, we're not doing campground, cemetery, water, sewer, none of that. Just whatever encompasses our general fund right now. Okay.
Just thinking out loud. Go ahead.
How do I spell? How do you spell that? Item 2, I'll go over some general expenditure notes, payroll and benefits. You'll note some recommended step increases. When we started working on the payroll budgets and discussing these as a committee, we did not have the existing vacancies we have in our police department as we do right now. So please consider the fact that we'll be rehiring or filling those vacancies with our current wage scales. I'm proposing a step in full increase for the deputy clerk, the administrator, and our public works. You'll note item 3, the health insurance premium for our full-time employees. There's no change for 2022. So we pay for our full-time employees' health insurance, just the employee. That's our monthly premium. In addition to that, we put into a healthcare savings account to pay for the deductible of that employee. That's $266.67 a month. That also has no change for next year. There was a slight increase of the dental insurance premium to $29.53, which was an increase of 58 cents. There's no full-time employee para increase for 22, and there's no change for police and fire. That's going to remain at 17.7%. So, and the para part-time also remains the same. So for those of you that are not familiar with public employees retirement, that is basically our pension, if you will. The employee puts in a portion and the city puts in a portion. So those percentages that are required by the statute are not increasing for next year. Those are the same. The fire budget, there's no municipal contribution to the Fire Relief Association. When I get down to the individual fire budget, I will explain that. That is typical in a situation where there is an investment loss for the fire relief's pension. If they're not gaining anything on their investments, the municipalities or their protection area would make that up. There's no significant increase to the budgets for the police department except for payroll. We try to keep that the same way because we don't know what's going to happen at this point. We're recommending that we continue the replacement of the street light heads to LED. I know when we started this retrofitting to street lighting, and this was before Mike, thought that it was going to take us 3 years to get this done. That was our original intention. I think this is going to be year 5. We've just found more, and we've had some problems with some of them when we started it, but we put in a budget, and this is for the fixtures and for the replacements. So we're proposing to keep that in for next year as well. Yep, it started in, I want to say 18 was the first year we started. Yeah. And please keep in mind, not all the streetlights in town are owned by the city. A lot of them are owned by Beltran Electric.
Yeah, the lion's share is Beltran Electric.
Yep. So those, if those ever get switched out, they're gonna do it, not us, because we don't own them. Yeah. On page 2, the library automation, we pay a levy to Kichigami for having the library in town. That has decreased $600, and then that automation and repair, that increased $61. So that's like this annual fee that we pay for all the technology, the internet, that type of thing. And then we've increased the repairs to buildings because I'd like to retrofit that building to LED lighting. You can see in this building how much of a difference it really made prior to before. So I'm estimating about $5,000, $4,000 to $5,000 to do that. On the streets budget, basically, we're trying to keep everything as much as it was for this year. The only differences you're seeing is our new equipment. This was the first year we paid for the public works trucks, the skid steer, and the tractor. So that'll continue next year. Mike has requested getting our second part-time employee to the same hourly wage as our current one so that they're on the same level. We're maintaining our street materials budget at 20,000. 2 years ago, it was 40, and we dropped it this year because we didn't know what COVID was going to do to the levy this year. So we are trying to maintain that as well, due in part that we're looking at building a brand new building. I also noted that in the industrial boulevard assessment that the city's been paying for the improvements to railroad and Industrial Boulevard. This is the last year of that assessment. The city is only paying that because they have ownership of the ball fields property that we're going to put the new building on. So this is the last year where we had to levy to pay that assessment back to ourselves. But that's how they set it up. On the parks budget, this is for the Wayside Rest, the road improvements and the infrastructure improvements to Frontage Road and Summit back in 17 and 18. Those will continue again next year. So I've noted that amount. We've increased the buildings maintenance materials because we want to continue working on improving those restrooms. We want to put new fixtures in those. Hopefully that won't get destroyed.
We can hope.
I always budget a slight increase to our liability, our autos, our auto, workers' comp, and property insurance. We get all of our insurance from the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, and they're usually pretty consistent on increasing somewhere between 2 to 4% each year. But at the end of each year, sometimes depending on how many claims there have been statewide, we get a little bit of a refund. So sometimes it's a wash. On the administration budget, most of these are all the same as this current year. The only thing that I've changed is I've increased the city attorney budget. I've spent a lot more money this year on attorney's fees due in part to many of the new projects that we've been working on. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I've needed more advisement from our city attorney.
She's fooling us with that comment.
Shoot, maybe I should put that back. Thanks. On the buildings and planning budgets, next year is our rental inspections. Now, we do it every 2 years. In 2020, we didn't get them all done, so we had to finish them in 21. So a lot of what the 20 budget was carried over into 21. We outsourced that to a building inspector out of Duluth. Gives us a decent rate. It's supposed to be basically an in and out. What he charges us is we charge our landlords. Unless there is a second inspection needed, then it's on the landlord. So in most cases, it's not something we profit from. The last thing I noted on this highlights is that minimum wage is due to increase again in January. It's going up very little to $10.33. It's $10.08 right now for us. The next document I'll go over is this one. If I can. So the general fund covers, like I said, all of those departments. The highlights I gave you on this is going to be the revenue side to it. This spreadsheet should provide to you what we budgeted in 2020, our full year's actual amount, 21's budget, what we've done so far through the 9th of this month, and what we're proposing. This spreadsheet will look a little weird because I don't have that general property tax line filled in gold, and that's because I use this as a calculation. If you look on the very bottom of the expenditure total, this is all of the individual budgets, departments budgets totaled up. You can see in the 22 budget line here, that's all the individual departments of what they total up to be. And their difference compared to 2021's budget. That gold number on the bottom is what the property tax would be, which is that increase that I spoke about at the beginning of the highlights. How did I get there? That's how you guys are all wondering, right? The next few pages are all the departments' individual budgets. Each of those budgets go over everything I just spoke about. I only gave you the highlights. It goes all the way down to what we pay in payroll taxes, insurance, the whole 9 yards. But each of those contribute to it as a whole. So you see, this is only So this is $773,000, right? Well, this is only 275. Well, the difference between this is this number here. That 498 is what we get with our LGA, what we get with our fire and our police aid, what we get from our fire protection contracts, and what we get from our liquor revenue, our liquor transfer. That net difference is this gold number. Okay. Everybody with me so far? So 9 years doing this, I haven't lost them. I'm not going to go over the individuals unless you guys see something and you have individual questions. I just want to do the biggest highlights so you know what we're looking at. What I'd like to do now is move to, where's my cursor? Move to this spreadsheet. This colorful little number here represents all of our bonds, our lease payments, any debt that the city has. Okay. So the first column is how much their principal payment is. And then the next is their interest. If there's any county fees, because we pay the county assessor to be our assessor, we can contribute that to one of our funds. And then the fourth column is if that particular fund has any special assessments that we receive from the taxpayers for that particular project. The next column over is if we can levy property taxes for that specific debt, or if we've chosen to. In this case, in the green area, you'll see the golf debt. Okay, I lost you guys yet? Sorry. There's green lines down here, Bobby Joe. I tried to color code it by what the debt was, so it would make it a little bit easier for me to explain. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So a lot of our debt is covered by revenue, whether it's water and sewer debt, golf debt, liquor debt, those types of things. It's not always covered by property taxes. That's the next column over. You'll see a considerable amount of our debt is covered by revenue. The difference between what we don't levy for, what we don't use revenue for, and the property taxes is what our total debt would be out of the property taxes. So you see this 85,150 down at the bottom of the property tax column. That's how much we would levy, that we would have in our levy for just debt. The next one down is that 275,000 from our first revenue page for property taxes that we need to make up. And between the two of those, that's our total levy amount, 360. 159 is what we're proposing. You'll also note in that little blue square that that's an increase over this year of 17.75%. That's just 1 year over the next. Okay. But I want you guys to look back 2 years. I want you guys to look back to 2020. I want you to see that we didn't raise our levy at all for 2021 because we had no idea what this year was going to give us coming out of the pandemic. We cut and we kept the budget as lean as we could last year. Now, as a committee, we first went through and put all of our hopes and dreams into the budget. This is half of what our hopes and dreams were. We cut it back again.
I wouldn't even say it was hopes and dreams. It was what we really should have, and we slashed it in half.
Yep. Because we didn't want to do that. This spreadsheet is just an example of what it could do to a taxpayer that has an estimated market value home of $100,000. Now I get this calculation from Beltrami County, the assessor's office. You can see that this goes all the way back to 2019. What affects an individual taxpayer, besides how much the levy is what our net tax capacity of an entire town is. And what we call a mill rate. We take that NTC, I'm going to use that abbreviation for now, which is basically the value of this town, all the taxes that our property tax value. You take all the total of what we're proposing we need in our levy. And it adds that calculation of what the homestead exclusion is for Beltrami County in the state of Minnesota on that house and what a proposed city of Blackduck's tax would be. That's a $99 increase to this year. Right now, a $30 increase to 2020. The earlier version that we had, this number was $852. That sounds right, Mike? It was $100 more than this. Couple things to note from 2019 to now is how big our net tax capacity has grown. When I started this calculation for the council members, the first year I can go back to is 2018, and that number was 264,000 at that time. So each year our net tax capacity is based on the valuation of the city from the year prior. So the reason this keeps jumping is in 2017, we had a lot of growth. Dollar General went in, 2 apartment buildings went in, 3 houses went into the city. All of that adds to our net tax capacity. But we didn't see that benefit us until 2019. It skips a year. So what we're looking at right now is a valuation of the city based on 2020's changes, if you will. Not much has happened in 2020 because we were in a pandemic. People probably did some home improvements back then, but I bet you it didn't change the value of their house as much as it probably could have. And if they did, I highly doubt they turned it into the city. So an assessor can at least add that to their value of their place.
The market has increased a huge amount, which is ridiculous. It's
Yes.
ballooned, it's just not even real.
And you're spot on that. That's the other thing that changes that number.
Mhm.
How many times something flips in this town in owners, because every time that happens, your valuation changes too. That's where that number keeps changing.
These numbers are just about right on. Almost exactly.
Yeah.
Where are you getting that? On this page?
So
No,
This is-
My taxes aren't this low.
no, just for Black.
No. My taxes are not like this. At all.
for just the Blackduck
Just the
line,
Black, just the Blackduck.
Yeah, I still don't see, I'm missing it. I don't understand how.
That's all it is. This is all the city of Blackduck. Taxes that-
it doesn't
Blackduck
include the school board, it doesn't include
doesn't
Beltrami
include
County.
Beltrami County.
Oh, okay. I was
Yep.
gonna say, mine don't look nothing like
Yep.
this.
Oh,
Everybody's tax
Wait.
statement has multiple sections.
When
You
you
have
said this
your,
is dead out, I'm like,
Yep.
no.
you have your local
You look-
government, your municipality, your township, you have your school board, you have your county. On top of that, where we live, we also have our E991, E911. We have waste management, and we have an ambulance taxing district too that we pay into.
And watershed.
We don't pay the airport. Yeah, we do. It's very small. You're right. That's new. Yep.
That's
But
not there.
it's a smaller percentage for all of those. So depending upon what the school board levies for and what the county is levying for and everything else will affect your total. all we're talking about is
It's just the.
our boundary,
Yeah, yep.
is the Blackduck boundary.
That's the only thing we're in control.
That is correct.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, I was thinking first, I was like, what? I go through mine, I just get crabby, so I just.
Everybody does. I do too.
I'm like, what? I gotta move.
So for those of you that are new to the board, I just want to pose a question so I don't have to go over. Do you understand the fire protection area? And where we get the money for that? And what that means? Bobby, Joe, no, that's fine. So if you go back to the second document where all the revenues are on, and you'll see there's a fire protection services revenue code. And for the last couple of years, it's been like $78,000 to $83,000. So what happens with our fire department is we represent 3 cities and 8 townships. That's what our fire department covers. That's our coverage area. Whatever individual department budget, looking for it, the fire department's budget is, I go off of market value of those governing entities and throw in this dollar amount into a calculation, and that percentage is what that entity pays us to have our fire department. The difference between what you see on the revenues and this is our percentage, this government. We pay for, and then we hold all of the liability, we own all the equipment, everything like that. They're paying for our services, basically. So that's where that number comes in, Bobby Joe. Questions, comments, concerns, criticisms? Does everybody understand the presentation?
Yes.
Understood. Doesn't necessarily mean.
You like
Like
it?
it.
I know, I know, I know. I think I expected this.
Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we have some staff turnover? 19?
In 19,
That-
in 19, your current public works
So that, I mean,
supervisor
so we
left
had,
and your new one started. Yes,
you know, so we had, there was a little bit of payroll
there was a little bit, but
that went down.
we pretty much made that up last year's increase for your current position. Where's the chocolate chips? I'm talking. The cookies.
Sweeten the deal, what's the cookie time? Hard to be mad when you're eating cookies.
I should wait till Bob Joe gets out of the restroom, but
You're already smiling.
it's important for the board to understand that when it comes to payroll, wages, and health insurance. We're just talking about Mike's department, for instance. He covers a gamut of departments in the city. And what we have the power to do is in our payroll program is to calculate out a percentage of their time and their payroll per that department. So not all of, let's just pick on Mike because he's here. All of Mike's wages comes out of the street department. Big portion of that goes to water and sewer, which is covered in this fund, cemetery, liquor, campground. Same thing goes for Ray and Chris. The administration budget, same thing. Deputy clerks spread out throughout a couple of the enterprise funds in addition to the general fund, myself included. The only staff wages and payroll that is 100% covered out of the general fund is the only department that doesn't have anywhere else to be charged to, and that's your police department. And it's also one of the biggest budgets in the general fund, which is very typical of every government. You go to the county, public health and public safety
Safety is.
are your two biggest budgets. They make up anywhere between 46 to 65% of government budgets.
Okay, so this needs to be October. Or
Week from today.
at our special,
Correct.
On the 27th.
I have to have it, I have to have the preliminary levy
that's
approved by the end of September, so. Good segue. All government entities have to have the preliminary budget levy certified to the county by the end of September. And then your truth and taxation hearing is done in December. And then you approve the final levy. Between September 30th and ours is gonna be, is it December meeting the 6th? That meeting, the board can lower the preliminary levy, but you can't increase it than what you certified it for in September. So if we can find a miraculous way to cut this even more, we do that by December. But we can't increase it.
I suspect everybody would look.
Um,
Well, yeah, well, I mean, that. Unless anybody has any other questions, you got something else for us?
No? Waiting for feedback.
Well, we know what we know what it is, it's just.
I'm gonna get any better.
It could have gone.
So this is a number you want this 17%, 17.75%.
Well, that's just a percentage that's over this year. I mean, when you take the mill rates of 105%, you spread it over the amount of people that are here and that are paying taxes and are net tax capacity. It may not look like a 17% increase to any given person. Your commercial owners are gonna take the biggest hit. The other thing to remember is you live in a municipality that houses a school district, which do not pay taxes, but they collect from you. And you have a lot of churches and nonprofit organizations in town that have brick and mortar that also don't pay property taxes. So that takes that mill rate and spreads it over the burden of the other taxpayers much more. It's really hard to explain that to the fire protection service governing entities because they don't have that in theirs. So when the city of Blackduck's percentage is much lower than, let's say, Hines,
Yeah.
it's because we have a lot of non-taxable property and it goes off of the taxable property and we pay.
Large amount of land.
It's a larger, yep,
Yeah, you consider the size of Pines Township.
Right,
yep,
all homes in it.
yep, and not a lot of churches.
no, they're not city, they're not running public water, they're not running public sewer.
Right, but I'm just picking out like the fire protection calculation that has always been a little issue between them because it goes off of market value structures, the taxable market value structures, and they don't have a lot of non-taxable, so theirs stays high and ours drops. Because that comes out. Anyway, another point.
Not a lot you can do unless you can get in some big business and do that, you can actually give them a tax break.
In some cases, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you build homes and you increase your consistent tax base. Good thing to note is we did work into the HRA levy in here on your page before this, the bond payment. That's this number right here. So I did work that in, that's 6196. It's not, if we took it out, it's not going to drop this much at all.
Well, for a few years. I thought that
So Christina, when you say build more houses, does the city have property to build more houses?
The city doesn't own any property to build houses, but you know, there are some places in town that could be buildable. You can also, and that's why we're trying to resurrect this housing development authority, is to put some money into the existing stock that we do have. So that will increase the marketability of those homes, which will intend to increase the marketability of the city, that NTC ends up going up higher. So if we can find a way to help those people that live in town improve what they have, it can help. That's your question. So
Yeah, I understand that, yeah, by improving their homes, they can keep their taxes higher. But as far as building the population, expand the town, I know
the best way is to start looking at annexing more property.
that's kind of where I was wondering, that's I was like, do we have that, or is that what we need to do, or is that even a thought that people have had?
Kind of always been on my bucket list to start working on. I have theories that the best way for the city to go would be either northwest or northeast, but by doing so, obviously you take away from the township. So going out this direction here, up 71 towards the lumberyard. I mean, this is prime property right now. If the developer had it and was going to build some houses, whether they had sewers punched in or not, that would be a perfect way to go residential. And somewhat business if you could, and just isolated. Or Quiet Meadows. Because we own the only road going in and out to that location. Not connected to 72 anyway, but we've kind of had that conversation with Heinz once or twice. I don't know how well that would work. Anytime you annex, you can look at some other examples in Bemidji and know that it's not a quick and easy down and dirty deal. It requires.
They're still in.
Yeah.
Time.
It requires attorneys, a lot of attorney time and a lot of costs to the city. You know, the townships probably have representation from the state, but you know, I don't know how long it would take.
Yeah.
Now going west would be ideal because the golf course and the campground are there, but the family that owns all this property probably not going to get rid of it because they own basically from Coburn Creek to the golf course into the corner. So to get to Decker's house, or the cemetery, excuse me. On the north side, they own it all. This is now gone. The Lindberghs detached 2 years ago. And then early this spring, we lost this piece. Agricultural areas, not an easy development kind of way. If we had a future plan in place that stated, yeah, we're going to take all this agriculture and turn it into residential, but we don't. This would be easier to do, but the school now owns this parcel. I think that's it. No, they own this. Yeah, they own this too. So if the school's going to go anywhere, they need land to build too.
Right. If you're gonna expand,
Yep.
you need facilities to build.
Right.
Expansion.
Right. Parts of this map are still a little old. I think the road right away, where's railroad? These little pieces right here are now residential. This is the one the city owns, and then this is the railroad grade where the trestle is. So really not a whole lot of development you can do here.
So that's where we're at. Onward.
Onward, okay, well, we jumped over the golf course, so I only have two more things I think I have to talk to you guys about. The communications policy, I presented a revision, the personnel committee met and are requesting a couple of changes. Currently, we have a cell phone policy that provides a stipend, a monthly stipend, if you will, to specific job roles. It's been requested that we add the deputy clerk on there to receive the data and voice plan of $40 a month. And I've been working with the Public Works Department in lieu of the stipend. We're going to pick up city phones on the city plan with Verizon. So the difference of maybe $15 a phone for maintenance 1 and 2, because they only get a $20 voice plan right now. But the personnel committee is recommending that we update the language on this policy to include the changes that I just spoke of.
Paige uses her phone for quite a bit of work. It's like text and emails, so they can't found everything, you know, and so you kind of have you know, like she's running errands for the city, she gets text, email, stuff, so we thought it would be, she asked for it.
Yeah, Don made a very good argument for it, even though I was against it. And one of them was simply one of the things the board has been trying to help me out with for the whole summer, and that's to take some of the responsibilities off of me. And I can honestly say that Paige is one of the first people I've had in that role that's been willing to take over some of that stuff, including what would be included, like the city's Facebook page, that type of stuff. So I've made some recommendations to make sure she's not using her actual phone to do it, but using city time. But she does respond to some people's, like Pam texts her often. And I know Melissa and Shonda both need her for things. So I'm okay with it. I think it's a small price to pay for the extra stuff that she's done for this department.
Remember she texted me.
Reminders?
Cemetery deeds, reminders, all kinds of fun stuff.
And then some, I mean, I realize there's those ways, there are other ways of communication, but for some of us in our lives, it's just a quick and easy reminder instead of having to pick up that phone and then listen to voicemail.
Right,
And that's things that Christine doesn't have.
that'll be on our.
That will be on your October 11th. Yep.
Okay.
And then item D, I have been working with Officer Rob Frake since Jace's letter came through last week.
Correct.
And he has agreed to take on some of the licensed officer chief of police role responsibilities in the extra time he has. He's a full-time instructor at BSU in the law enforcement section. Plus he is also working on his own law degree. So he's got some time during the week on a couple of days that I've requested. And he's going to do the best he can to be as flexible on his schedule as possible. But he and I are working on this agreement, and this is the draft that we've ended on last week. And I think compensating him to a wage acceptable for the extra duties is not a big request. And I also think, considering what he's gonna need to do in order to keep the department running and keep good communications and relations with Beltrami County Sheriff's Department, that we allow him to take home one of our squads in between the days that he's working and not working here.
Where does he live?
Bemidji, South Bemidji. Our Jace actually lived in Turtle River, so he was happy to half the distance when he was on his long weekend. We did the same thing, especially in the winter time, so the slots were inside, not getting frozen. So I put a time limit on this agreement to the end of this year, or until we are allowed and replace and find a suitable replacement. I think this is out of the question.
He's good with that.
He's good with that.
I mean, he goes back to the regular part-time hours and wage after we've.
He does. I would like to have I would like to have other conversations with our personnel committee about our part-time employees' wages, though. I feel as though we're paying them way too little, especially for some of the people that are filling those roles. One of them has over 18, 20 years experience as a law enforcement officer. We're paying them almost half of what the county's paying them. So there's really no incentive for him to really fill in a whole lot, even to bank his Pura and his high five at $20 an hour. So I'd like to reevaluate that before the end of the year. Because I think we could get more part-timers if we had an experienced level versus a starting level part-time officer wage. We do have some part-time officers that haven't been in law enforcement that long, but we have a lot. We have Lee Anderson, who's been in the sheriff's department since 1997. So that's for further consideration.
All right.
Hopefully this process of staffing our police department back up will we'll be able to work on that. Staffing. So the full-time officer's position was posted to the Minnesota Post Board's website on, it'll be a week and a half now. Not this previous Friday, but Friday. I've already had 3 applications. I'm running that until October 30th. I cannot officially post a chief of police position until after October 6th. At which point I will do the same. Yes, and we did that for not just the police department, but the new golf director position and the staffing needs of the liquor store. So that was desperately needed.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the last one? That was your wish.
If Mike had a free time, I know you got plenty to do,
You want me to be a tour guide?
but I would like for you to explain to everybody how take us out to the ponds. If you haven't been out there,
Yeah.
you can see it, you can see how this works, what exactly that we're doing with our water.
I had it in my head that we had the old truck with the back seat, and Mike's like, we don't have the back seat anymore. I'm like, oh, we can fit 5 people in there. He's like,
Yeah.
no, we can't. I don't know, maybe Mike takes 2 people at a time instead of a full console walkthrough.
And that's fine, I mean, I've been out there. And
Whatever anybody wants to do. I mean, if that's the case,
would you rather just set it up individually?
if we're not all gonna go together and we're not doing a tour like we did back in 19,
Yep,
then if you guys just wanna find me and we can do a one-on-one, that might be just easier.
Okay.
So
I just thought it'd be a great idea for everybody to get a good look.
yeah, just get a hold of me. I'll be gone the first week or so of October here, but other than that, around.
And I would strongly encourage everyone to attend the golf night, the Chamber Golf Course night that's coming up here evening,
Tomorrow?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Oh, it's Wednesday.
Yep.
I'm teaching a community at.
But there's, I realize there'll be lots of folks that can't make it or don't want to make it or whatever, but. Yep,
It'll be a good time.
it'll be a good time. I plan on attending. Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Very emotional.
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Max is first, Lori is second. Got it.
What?
At the golf course?
It's
Chamber night,
Is that the golf course?
yes.